This was a very difficult question, but with a lot of learning points. First of all, when I'm looking at this, this is a non-calculated paper. I'm trying to understand what's going on, but this is written in a really unfriendly manner. Let's rewrite it in a way that means we can understand it better. So changing f of x to y, changing this horribly written power to that. So write down is a command word in the IB, meaning there's no need to show working, and in fact it'd be wrong to show working. Wrong in the sense that you should be able to do it by mathematical intuition. I'll come back to that. So the domain is all allowable x values. What are you allowed to put into this function here? Well, the only things you're not allowed to do in maths is take the square root of a negative, because this whole topic is always in the real world. You can't take the square root of a negative, you can't divide by 0, and you can't take the logarithm of a negative or 0. So in this question, you're simply saying, this is only to do with square roots. I mustn't allow x to be negative, so the answer is easy. I always stop when I write this symbol down and say to myself, consciously, do I want to include the equal sign? Is putting 0 into a square root okay? Of course it is. So I include it. The range is all of the possible y values you could get out of that. Now, with a calculator, we just sketch it. And then you can just look at the where are there y values. But we don't have a calculator. So you're just using a bit of common sense. If we put positive numbers into this, what do we get? We're clearly only going to get positive numbers. What's the lowest possible one? X equals 0 is 0. So that is pretty straightforward. The next question was appalling. What does f of x equals 6 mean? It means that y is 6. So I'm putting 6 into the y value here. And then look at this command word again. Write down. Write down for a question of this sophistication. And that means do not attempt to solve this equation. Some of you very sort of correctly said, okay, I'm going to try and solve this. Let's rearrange. And no, this is write down. In other words, use a bit of nous, a bit of mathematical intuition, and have a guess. Now, because it's a non-calculated paper, the answer is not going to be 5.7392. It's going to be a nice round number. Can you guess it? Then lastly, a very, very difficult question, which is determine f inverse. So many of you realized, yeah, I'm going to swap the x's and y's around, and then you have to attempt to find the y. And then so many of you committed one of the cardinal sins of maths, which is taking an equation and doing the same thing to both sides, so far not a sin, but then not doing it to the whole side, doing it to individual terms. So some of you put in a squared here, here, and here. In other words, you just squared every term. Let's do that with an easier question. Well, 4 is certainly equal to 1 plus 3. Is 4 squared equal to 1 squared plus 3 squared? No, it's not. We cannot square individual terms. If you want to square an equation, no problem, but you must square both sides, the full side. So we could square this top equation, put brackets around it, but that is not going to work. So how do you solve this? Well, I've moved it to make a nice equals 0, and also to give you this sense of, oh, look at that, there's 3 terms. And you should be constantly on the lookout. This is a hidden quadratic, because root y, when you square it, is equal to y. So I'm going to encourage you to do this. When you think there's a hidden quadratic, replace the central figure with a k. So let's do that here. That takes a lot of mathematical insight. And there it is, very clearly quadratic. Remember that the question was determine f inverse, so I need to rearrange this until it reads y equals. So this is finding the inverse of a quadratic, for which you have to know the method, which is correct. It is completing the square. So I'll quickly run through this. This is hard. So you complete the square basically by halving this number. When I multiply this bracket out, I'm going to get k squared plus k plus a quarter. So I subtract the quarter. and the minus x is still in there. Then I just need to rearrange this until it reads k equals. So I'll move the quarter and the x to the other side. Then I will square root. And then I just need to move that half to the other side. So we'll get that. There we go. But remember that k is equal to the square root of y. So now I have to say that I'm going to square both sides, and I get that. So supremely tough question. You must remember at the end of an inverse question to write it out correctly. So there we go. Tough question.